Can a MacBook Air 15-inch M2 replace my MacBook Pro 16-inch M1 Max? Don't laugh, I asked myself this very question recently. But you may be wondering why on earth somebody would want to upgrade to a lesser, weaker MacBook Air when they already have an almost top model MacBook Pro at home. Well, these days it's not so black and white anymore. One of the main reasons why I was considering this upgrade, or downgrade if you want, was the weight. The 16-inch MacBook Pro M1 weighs 4.7 pounds or 2.1 kilograms, but the 15-inch MacBook Air M2 only 3.3 pounds or 1.51 kilograms. And for someone like me who is really not a prototype of bodybuilder, it's a huge difference. The 15-inch MacBook Air M2 is so comfortable to use and light that I can easily carry it using only single hand. Something completely unthinkable with the 16-inch MacBook Pro. Or if you are a student or you carry your MacBook everywhere with you in a backpack, believe me, those 1.4 pounds or 600 grams difference is very noticeable. Price was not the reason for me, but for the record, let's compare it too. I chose the MacBook Air 15-inch M2 with 24 gigs of memory and 500 gig SSD for $1,899 versus my M1 Max MacBook Pro 16-inch, which I bought in 2021 for $3,899. That's $2,000 difference. In other words, for a price of a single MacBook Pro 16-inch M2 Max, these days you can have two 15-inch M2 MacBook Airs. In the past, I also had the MacBook Air 13 with the M1 SoC. It was really adorable companion and I loved it. But because I'm already old pumpkin, as you can see, and the whole day I'm looking into displays, my eyes are not so good anymore. So the 13 inches of the Air became unusable size for me. People in my age know very well what I'm talking about, unfortunately. That was the main reason why I pulled the trigger and bought the 16-inch MacBook Pro. Not because of the M1 Max performance, not because of the 64 gigs of memory. It was only because of the display size. If Apple would offer a 16-inch MacBook Air a few years ago, you can bet on it I would buy it. So, thanks God, Apple finally released the MacBook Air 15-inch, which I'm sure many people have been waiting for. And I'm also sure the 15-inch Air will become an absolute blockbuster. How can I be so sure? Watch this whole video because I will give you many arguments why. If you are switching from 13-inch to 15-inch, you will see massive gain in screen real estate. Two apps side by side? No problem, it's perfectly usable. On the 13-inch, it's more like two iPhones side by side. But how I feel when I switched from 16.2 inches on the MacBook Pro to 15.3 inches on the MacBook Air? Honestly, yes, sure, it's noticeable, little bit smaller, but after a day or so I did get used to it and now it feels for me natural and comfortable again. Do I miss the promotion display with the 120Hz refresh rate? Again, I was surprised, but not at all. Many times to increase battery life on my 16-inch MacBook Pro, I had to enable the low power mode, which also disables the 120Hz refresh rate. And what about the loss of HDR? The 16-inch MacBook Pro has the Pro XDR display, capable of sustained 1000 nits full screen brightness and peak one of 1600 nits. The MacBook Air 15-inch tops out only at 500 nits. But in real life, of all day use working with documents, writing emails, chatting on Discord, watching YouTube videos and so on, there is absolutely no difference at all, because almost all of such content is still in SDR only and not in HDR. Well, all my videos in past few years are in fact in HDR, but the Apple displays are so amazing that even watching HDR videos on the MacBook Air 15-inch looks great. Yes, sure, the peak brightness difference is there when I focus on it and compare it side by side to my XDR display. But is it $2,000 better? For me, not at all, and I'm really a demanding user, believe me. In consuming SDR content, the MacBook Pro 16-inch has the same peak brightness of 500 nits as the MacBook Air 15-inch, so no difference here at all. By the way, I noticed when both displays are set to 50% brightness, the 15-inch Air was brighter to my eyes. And now we come to the Achilles heel of the MacBook Air 15-inch with the M2, and that's performance. Obviously, fanless design in a much smaller body can't produce same performance, especially in sustained heavy workloads. But the MacBook Air was never meant to be a workstation. It's a lightweight, portable device, now with the added benefit of bigger screen. I always teach my clients they should use the right tool for the job done. No one certainly can assume that the MacBook Air would be good for 3D graphics or daily editing and rendering YouTube videos, right? But wait, I was surprised. The MacBook Air 15-inch with the M2 handled even that with dignity. Unlike the previous M1 Air generation, the M2 MacBook Air has the Apple Media Engine with hardware-accelerated H.264, HAVC, ProRes and ProRes RAW, decode and encode, which makes it suitable for lighter video editing. Look, I set myself a little challenge: to learn not to worry about the CPU temperature anymore. In such heavy tasks, the Air can easily get over 100 degrees of Celsius, so let's see if the decision to believe to Apple developers that such a high long-term temperatures will not shorten lifespan was right or not. I will test it for you and let you know in future. And that gets me into another topic, and that's memory. What I loved on my MacBook Pro 16-inch M1 Max was the option to get 64 gigs of memory, which I did. For my workloads, it barely hit a situation where it would need to swap to disk. Also because I never used it to maximum and for any super heavy editing. For that I had my Mac Pro 2019, Mac Studio M1 Ultra and now the M2 Ultra one. I was very pleasantly surprised that even though I have on the Air many gigs of swap space on my disk thanks to only 24 gigs of memory, the 15-inch MacBook Air still feels snappy. No beach balls all the time, it's perfectly usable. The 15-inch M2 Air finally helped me to heal my swapophobia disease. Around 3 gigs per second reads and write speeds on the 500 gig SSD is good enough to not to have bitter experience while working on heavier tasks. We all know the MacBook Pro 16 has much better speakers. Fine. The 15-inch Air can't compete here. But did I get used to lower quality? Sure I did, because despite little weaker, it's still freaking good for such an ultra-thin laptop. But again, the MacBook Air 15-inch helped me to heal another phobia. I absolutely hated that the MacBook Pro was constantly dirty. Everywhere on the keyboard there was dog hair, fine grains of dust or whatever. There is nothing like that on the MacBook Air. And most of all, I had a problem with these dust grains in the speaker grill of the MacBook Pro. I was constantly afraid they would fall through inside and I would never get them out. I got to the point where I bought a mini vacuum cleaner like this just to treat that. Look. Sorry. I will leave you a link in video description if you are dealing with same phobia. But biggest surprise to me was the battery life. The 16-inch MacBook Pro has massive 100 watt-hour battery, so you may think it will last longer than the 66.5 watt-hour battery on the Air. Wrong. I simulated my normal daily routine like, answering emails, chatting, writing scripts, watching videos, Zoom video calls and so on. When the 16-inch ran out of juice, the MacBook Air 15-inch had still 64% battery left and showing 7 hours and 44 minutes of runtime left. What? Are you kidding me? You may admit my M1 Max MacBook Pro is not a new one, so the battery is already weakened, but with just 223 cycles, it's still in good shape. And what about the chargers? With the 16-inch, I used the 140 watt one, which is really huge compared to the 70 watt I chose for the 15-inch Air. And the claimed 50% charge in just 30 minutes is real. And there's one more difference that nobody talks about, the keyboard. I noticed when I replaced my 13-inch MacBook Air M1 with the 16-inch MacBook Pro, I can't no longer type as fast and accurate. The M1 Air keyboard was by my opinion much better than the MacBook Pro one, and same applies here again. Typing on the 15-inch MacBook Air simply feels to me more pleasant. Maybe it's because of the lower height, or because of the silver or dorado goldish accents around the individual keycaps of the Starlight finish. But I don't care why. I simply really enjoy typing on the Air much more. And last but not least, I must love the look and feel of everything I use. So also computers, which I work with all day long. I don't care if my car has 400 horsepower or just 50. If it's purple, I take it. And let's face it, the MacBook Air M2 15-inch, especially in the Starlight color, is simply irresistible. Since I'm using the 15-inch Air, I much more enjoy time spent with it. It has the horsepower to do everything most people need. powerful but still lightweight, eye-catching, adorable. It's a companion, my new companion, who kicked the 16-inch MacBook Pro out for sale. Get one and you will love it as I do. I firmly believe that you definitely won't make a mistake when you buy this MacBook Air 15-inch for yourself, for your wife, your lover, or whatever. This time, Apple really nailed it.